So we are back here on the Choose954 Podcast, episode 38, from the New River Artist Co-Operative in the History Fort Lauderdale Museum with local artist, curator, manager, teacher, Ellen Cohen-Berman. If you didn't know about Choose954, we started a social movement to cultivate culture and community in Broward County, keep people in the know with all the great things that are going on in an effort to make this a better place to live and not just a better place to vacation. The point of the podcast is to connect you with incredible people like her doing amazing things in the community. And this podcast is sponsored by the 1,000 Mermaids Artificial Reef Project, creating artistically crafted artificial reef modules to help save the reefs and save the oceans. You can find out more at www.1000mermaids.com. Without much further ado, tell us a little bit about yourself at a high level here.
Well, right now I am the manager, the curator, and one of the artists at the New River Inn Artist Cooperative, located in the New River Inn, part of History Fort Lauderdale. We are the museum, but we have 3 other buildings in total, 3 buildings in total here, and we are on the 3rd floor of the New River Inn. I am a ceramic artist. I teach ceramics at the Guild in Pompano, which is a not-for-profit school, and just love creating with clay.
And how would you say you got involved in the arts?
I've gotten involved in the arts through necessity. I lived in Coral Springs since 1992, and my daughter was in Coral Springs Middle School when I heard about a playground that we were going to be built that was designed by children at Betty Stradling Park on Wiles Road. And I got very involved and I became the family fundraiser. And one of the big fundraisers that we did was a handprint wall at the entrance of Slide and Glide Playground that is in Betty Stradling Park.
Which I know intimately well, and one of the ways that we connected, because I'm from Coral Springs,
Right.
on Wiles Road, and I know Betty Stradling Park
Right.
very intimately well, and I think it has contributed significantly to Coral Springs, to Broward County. I mean, if you don't know, I think Coral Springs, the last time I checked, had like 96 parks in the city. Which is
family friendly.
Yes,
that's for
very
sure.
family friendly,
Yes.
and that was definitely a great contribution and a great way to incorporate art in there. Tell us about some of the other art projects you've been involved in Broward County.
Well, from the Betty Stradling Park, the next thing that happened while my daughter was in Coral Springs Middle School was meeting Sharon Shawless, the then principal. And I created a fundraiser that is now on the front of Coral Springs Middle School called Diamonds in the Rough, where children literally sign their names on tiles, and that's on the front of that school.
Amazing.
And then from there, I was called by Dr. Paul, who has since passed away, but he was a vet that was very active in Coral Springs, and I created a fundraiser for Dr. Paul's dog park in Coral Springs. And then he also asked me to do some tiles for his 2 veterinary hospitals, one on Wiles Road and one on Atlantic Boulevard. And then after that, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School's facade had sheared off, and I did my due diligence and painted a watercolor of the Everglades and did a presentation to the then principal, Sherry Clark. And in 2000, the mural went up. It's 144 square feet on the front of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and it's of the Everglades in honor of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
One of the largest murals in Broward County, and one of the most noteworthy, unfortunately now for better or worse, but great contributions to the arts in Coral Springs and in Parkland.
Yes.
That when I was growing up, I don't really remember having so much involvement in the arts, aside from going to the museum and Museum of Discovery and Science and Broward Center for the field trips. But I like to think that those contributions now, there's more for the kids to appreciate and engage with.
Well,
So
I went in front of the commission one evening and I requested an art in public places.
Yeah. Amen.
And after that, they did create an art in public places ordinance in Coral Springs, and that's why you see so much art in Coral Springs on the entrances to Coral Springs, etc., etc. Very proud I lived there. I have since moved east.
Amen. And I'd like to also think that those contributions once again laid the groundwork. They just had the recent temple installation.
Yes.
And that, you know, that was a big public art installation. There's also a lot of great sculptures now.
Exactly.
If you haven't been to Coral Springs in a while or ever, phenomenal downtown being redeveloped.
Yes.
City Hall, absolutely beautiful redevelopment. They've got a great lawn in front of City Hall now that they do events at. We had the 1,000 Mermaids Artificial Reef project in the Innovate Downtown weekend a couple months ago, which was like a pitch competition one night, like Shark Tank style.
Yes.
And then the next night they had live music, food trucks, the string lights, vendors, local artists, and all the makers and creators displaying their startups, their ideas, their small businesses. And I brought my parents, who still live in Coral Springs, in the house I was born in, where I was born and raised in Coral Springs, and it was phenomenal. And I never in my lifetime thought I'd see this amazing, you know, we have great, you know, the 4th of July community
Yes.
events at like Mullins Park, and there are great things in Coral Springs, and it is a family-centered city. It's a great place to raise a family, but you know, now there's more arts and culture. You know, they do art walks, they have
Yes.
art festivals, they have jazz brunches,
Yes, they do.
Savor the Notes. So kudos to everybody involved in Coral Springs, and Scott Brook, a family friend that became the mayor, who we need to have a conversation with soon. But without much other further ado, so aside from those contributions to the arts, why don't you tell us about some of your artwork, which we have right behind us here.
Yes, we do. I decided, after much thought process, wanting to go and take courses, I finally took my first course in ceramics at Broward College.
You want to tell us how we got to that? You just told me that story. It was fascinating.
It was a funny story. I had been thinking and thinking and thinking. My mother, she should rest in peace, always had me doing artwork when I was a little kid, and I always loved art. And I had said, I want to get back into it, but life gets in front of you. You have children, you have to make a living. I was a court stenographer. I was very involved in the community, and I finally said, you know what, I'm going to do something for myself, but when am I going to do it? And one day, coming up I-75 from a deposition in Miami, a truck in front of me dropped a box. And I had a car to the right and a car to the left, and there's the box coming about 18 inches by 18 inches, and I'm like, there I go. And the box, thank God, went underneath my car, blew my left rear tire. When the cars to either side of me pulled forward and I slowed down, a Road Ranger came, fixed my tire, and I beelined right to Broward College and signed up for my first ceramics class with Professor Lansing, who I have to give kudos for, because he's the nicest, warmest gentleman who really made my creativity grow. And behind me, I would always go to him and say, I have this concept. And he goes, well, go and do it. And I did it. And I learned from my first sculpture that I was building, and I was putting on the last triangle. I love geometrics. It was all triangles, and I was putting on the last triangle, and the whole thing collapsed. Everyone in the class screamed. He screamed, we can fix it, we can fix it. I said, let it go. I learned from it. And from that, I created these that interior-wise have a structure, a lattice structure to withstand the pressure from above, because although a lot of these look like they're metal, they're not. They're made of just clay. And air has to get through them. As an example there, that's four-sided with a lattice on the interior, and then there's a hole down at the bottom so the steam can get out while it's in the kiln. So it's an engineering process.
It is.
And I learned it, and I loved it, and I just thank Professor Lansing for letting my creativity grow. And then this one was in the Broward. All of these have been in the Broward Students Art Show, but this one I won 3-dimensional art award.
How about that?
that was a juried art show. So I'm very, very proud of it.
Great colors, great shapes, great sizes, great price points, all made locally here by Broward artists.
Yes.
For those that aren't familiar with where we are in your studio, tell us a little bit about the New River Artists Cooperative in the History Fort Lauderdale Museum.
The New River Artists Cooperative came about by me being told by another artist to come down and show my art at the jazz brunches that take place the first Sunday of every month from 11 to 2, and it's sponsored by various sponsors along the River Walk here, but the jazz brunch is right around the New River Inn Museum on the grounds, and I was there, and lo and behold, Patricia Zeiler, our executive director of the museum, took a liking to my artwork and called me to ask me if I could help with a fundraiser. Because of Hurricane Irma, we lost the floor in the first floor education room, and Orchard Hardware, which is no longer here anymore, was helping fundraise.
They were here at the right time.
They were, and I went and on Federal Highway, and I did the fundraiser, and at that time Patricia Zeiler asked me to please come and have a discussion with her, and we did the following week, whereupon I was brought up to the third floor by Kamal Khan, who is the second in command in the museum, and this looked all like a grandmother's attic, full of stuff that wasn't being used. And I took a look at all these wonderful rooms, and I said, wow. And when I went back to Patricia's office, she then asked me, would you be interested in curating an artist in residence program for History Fort Lauderdale, which has now been, they changed their name to, it used to be the Fort Lauderdale Historical Society, and our new name now is History Fort Lauderdale. And I said, I'd be honored.
Beautiful.
And that's how I came to
great
do this.
Space, phenomenal history, phenomenal photographs, exhibits, memories, memoirs. If you haven't been, encourage you to come. We're going to have a few opportunities we'll tell you about in a little bit to come. One of the current exhibits worth coming is called Island Imprint, a history of the Caribbean community in Broward County. They've brought seminal art exhibitions during Miami Art Week. Actually, specifically, it was in conjunction and collaboration with Art Basel, which is one of the first, I believe, designated Art Basel collaborations in Broward County.
Yes.
So kudos to Patricia Zeiler and
Tara Chadwick had a lot to do with
definitely
that.
Tara Chadwick
Tara
and
Chadwick
all
had
of
a
her
lot to do with it.
contributions.
Yes.
Phenomenal support of the arts in Broward. We should probably get her on the podcast. You would also wouldn't want to go without mentioning some of the phenomenal artists that are in the New River Artists Cooperative.
Correct. When this came about, I started to think about phenomenal artists that I knew, and the first person, or the first two people I thought of was Ruchi. Ruchi is a phenomenal public artist and a mosaic artist. He's done public art throughout Florida, and he actually installed my first project at Brady Stradling Park, and that's how I came to know him, and he installed the project on the front of Carl Springs Middle School for me, and also Dr. Paul's Dog Park.
How about that?
So clearly Ruchi came in, I called him up, I said, I have an opportunity for you, as did I call Brian Fitzgerald, who is the fine arts teacher at Fort Lauderdale High School, who I met through my son, who used to teach at Fort Lauderdale High School. And Brian is a phenomenal painter, as well as an incredible quilter.
How about that?
A incredible quilter. He's just come up with the logo of Fort Lauderdale quilted by him. Yes, so it's amazing. It's amazing. And then from there, I was lucky enough to have signed up to do Art on the Square at Cornell Art Museum. And things just happen, and I was in a booth next to this lovely lady, and I asked her, there were 100 artists there, and I said, where are you out of? And they were from all over the country. And she said, Oakland Park. And I went, well, we need to talk, because I live in Oakland Park now. And sure enough, that's how I came to speak to Harmony Jones, who is a fabulous artist who likes to repurpose things, and also in a phenomenal way. And she also does encaustics, where she, and I might be getting this wrong, I think I'm getting it right, she uses wax and she colors it, and she puts resin in to harden it, and she puts that on her pieces. And then from there I asked Harmony to recommend someone, and she recommended Florencia, and that's how we came to Florencia Clemente Grandpré, who's a fabulous mixed media artist. And then from there, originally we got Jennifer Haley, who does two-part epoxy resin, but Jennifer has now left, and she's getting her own space. And so Twyla Gettert had talked to me last year, and we had no space, and we just kept in contact, and now Twyla is our 6th artist. So my goal when I was putting this together was not to have 6 ceramic artists.
Sure.
It was to have artists of different mediums, so we would be a wonderful team.
Sure.
And I think, that's come about.
I think you got a great team, great roster. The latter half have all participated in Art Fort Lauderdale, and you don't have to fully explain Harmony's work, because we actually did an Art Fort Lauderdale podcast with Harmony here last year, previewing her work that was in the Art Fair on the Water. Correct. So you can find that if you go on to YouTube or Facebook and type in Art Fort Lauderdale podcast, Harmony Jones and Florencia.
Right.
And we'll be sure to get one with Twyla in the future. She's been a great friend and supporter and great artist.
And then I'd love you to do Ruchi and Brian, because it would be different art for Art Fort Lauderdale, because we're all a team.
And I'm glad to tell their stories, and that's another one of the beautiful things of the podcast here. And that's one of the beautiful things of the space. And I know that this space, well, obviously it's very unique in the fact that it's a museum, a history museum, a nonprofit. But the fact that from a creative placemaking perspective, which is something that we're starting to storytell and explain the importance of, you've been able to make safe, affordable artist studio spaces in downtown Fort Lauderdale. There is only 6 of them, which is more than fine, which serves a great purpose, because there's really, outside of here and outside of Fat Village and outside of Mass District, there really isn't so much safe, affordable artist studio space in a arts district. This technically is the Riverwalk's Arts and Entertainment District, so that's one of the issues that my partner, Mr. Angel Martineau, and myself are working to address with our latest initiative called Zero Empty Spaces, where we are working to activate vacant retail, commercial, warehouse, storefront space that's either tied up in a buy and hold, it's tied up in the permitting process, it's just vacant, it's tough to be leased, and we're activating that as safe, affordable artist studio spaces at or below or as close to $2 a square foot as we can, being inclusive of the electricity, the water, and the insurance that we're taking care of. We're marketing it, promoting it. Already gone on WLRN to talk about it. Thankfully, Katie Swardowski, the local Broward reporter for WLRN, took an interest to it, and she's going to help cover a local artist and storytell their journey, because if we don't have safe, affordable artist studio space,
we won't have art.
We won't have the artist, we won't have the art.
Right.
And just to round this point out, we all know the success of Wynwood.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the unfortunate byproducts, not just the gentrification and the other details we can get into at another time, but those artists, unfortunately, that, like my partner, that used to chip in $100 to rent a warehouse in the early 2000s, that warehouse sells for $40 million now,
Exactly.
and the artists can't afford to be there. So they got priced out of Wynwood, they got priced out of Lincoln Road, they got priced out of Little River, Little Haiti. So now they're coming to Fort Lauderdale. Unfortunately, Fort Lauderdale, outside of our control, is become pretty expensive as well. That's another conversation for another time. But
Yes.
if these artists don't have place to work, let alone live, they're going to have to go other places to pursue their
Exactly.
craft and their passion. And that ties into a bigger picture conversation, which we're going to address tonight with the third annual installment
And I will be there.
which you will, and you were there last year, which
Exactly.
we appreciate, of a panel discussion that we've had entitled The Art, Culture, and Creative Economy in Fort Lauderdale, a panel discussion where we storytell the importance of the arts. This year we have another phenomenal panel, including my partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, the co-founder and creator of Art Fort Lauderdale, Choose954, and all of our other initiatives. We have Jody Tanner, Los Angeles Capital Arts and Broward County Cultural Chair, returning. And then we're glad to welcome Commissioner Steve Glassman,
Oh, fabulous.
District 2,
Fabulous.
Fort
Yes.
Lauderdale City Commissioner, who also was a longtime Broward County Cultural Division Administrator, who helped actually, he told me at our last meeting, he helped form not only Sailboat Bend Artist Loft, but he helped create Hollywood Arts Park, amongst some other great contributions for the arts. So if you're not able to make it, it's at 6:30 tonight, Monday, June the 10th. Hopefully I'll get this podcast posted before then and you can listen. But we'll have a replay of it online so you could be part of the conversation in the future. We'll share all this with you on Choose954. But for those that want to find out more about you, where can they find you on social media or the interwebs?
We have a Facebook page called New River Artist Co-op, or New River Artist Cooperative. We are trying to post on it as much as we can. We're getting people's permission to use their pictures when they do come up here, and some of them purchase things from us. And that's right now what we're doing. Baby steps, as I say. We're having a big meeting to talk about how we can get ourselves out there. It's a new thing, comparatively. I mean, we celebrate our first anniversary, but it's baby steps.
Amen. It's amazing. It's really a great contribution to the arts in Broward County and in downtown Fort Lauderdale, and it's serving a wonderful purpose. We're excited to be able to support you guys and bring some new folks in there, hopefully you listening.
Well, you've been great, because when we had Art Fort Lauderdale, I called you up and I said, I was thinking for 2020 we might be able to have an open studio night, but we had one in 2019 in January during Fort Lauderdale Art and Design
That's
Week.
right.
It was fabulous.
Yes,
it was
we
just
did.
fabulous.
And also had, I believe, the day before the closing of the Seminole Art exhibit, which was still running at that
Yes.
time. So that was also during Fort Lauderdale Art and Design Week.
Exactly.
So that was another great opportunity to come out here and check
Exactly.
the space. We have another phenomenal opportunity to come out here and check out the space, have a very enriching experience outside of just viewing the space. Our monthly breakfast lecture series, our mini TED Talk, CreativeZen,
Yes.
will take place this Friday, June 14th. Doors open at 8:30. It's a talk. The talk starts at 9. You're out of here by 10. It's a free event aimed to connect, engage, and inspire our creative community one Friday morning a month, which is the second Friday morning of every month. We provide breakfast bites, coffee, and a very thought-provoking, inspiring talk, which is this same platform is how I got my inspiration and my aha moment to get into the arts and culture, which is why I pay it back and pay it forward by hosting these talks for free. This month's speaker is one of the most powerful speakers I've ever seen, who is a Broward native,
Yes.
former NFL player, current assistant principal, current spoken word poet, father, a phenomenal host, phenomenal human being, Jerris, QuickThePoet Evans, I can guarantee you will be moved if you attend.
Yes, so come out to, we are hosting it at the New River Inn Museum, 231 Southwest 2nd Avenue in Fort Lauderdale.
You can find out more. AAF CreativeZen with support from the American Advertising Federation local chapter of Greater Fort Lauderdale and the Palm Beaches. So that's this Friday, the Friday morning,
Yes.
the night before CreativeZen. So the second Thursday night of every month is one of our favorite community events of the month, which we're so glad to support. Raw Storytelling, True Stories Untold, hosted by my dear friend Eden Nolasco of Witchcraft Branding. It's our version of the Moth. Phenomenal event held in a coffee shop in downtown Fort Lauderdale. You can find out more at Raw Storytelling. And we're so glad to support So Far Sounds, which that'd be interesting if we could host one of those here. It's a Songs from a Room experience, very intimate listening experience. They don't release the name of the venue. They don't release the musicians that are playing. You have to request access or RSVP or be invited. And then they tell you the venue the day before. They'll just put on the flyer. It's in Fort Lauderdale. It's my favorite music event of the month, and Choose954 is glad to be a media partner and support my dear friend Jennifer Ring. The next one is June 15th, and if you didn't get into that one, we encourage you to sign up for their newsletter, sofarsounds.com, SOFAR Sounds. It's not spammy, but they'll tell you when the next events are, so you can request access or RSVP to be a part of them. I can guarantee you they are some of the most memorable experiences. You can see a little bit on their YouTube page with music, video quality, recaps. Absolutely phenomenal. These are a few ways that you can get involved in the arts. We don't live in a place like Greater Fort Lauderdale or Broward County to, go to work, come home, go to sleep, rinse and repeat. There needs to be a play element to the live, work, and play. And as we found through our lives, arts gives you that enriching cultural balance, experiences.
And you meet phenomenal people.
Phenomenal people. We've seen phenomenal things. Art has given me more without ever being an artist in terms of experiences and connections. And so that's why we do a lot of these things, to connect and engage people with the arts so that hopefully they can be enriched. And it ties into this bigger picture of the creative economy and the creative class, which you'll find out more about tonight at the panel.
Exactly.
And how all of this, everybody wants this to be a world-class community. We have all of the assets in the world. We have the greatest proximity of any airport to a port,
For sure.
downtown, and beach anywhere in the world. It does not get better than that. We have direct flights now from Spain, from Oslo, Norway, from China, to a world-class international airport, to one of the top ports in the world, to one of the best beaches in the world, to what's now becoming a well-cultured, world-class downtown. But if you don't connect and engage with your community, are we ever going to be Miami? Maybe not, but there's only one way that we can, and it's to connect, engage, show up,
and try.
That's so right. we hopefully with some of what we mentioned, you'll be able to connect, engage with the arts. We look forward to having you join us for CreativeZen. We look forward to having you join us hopefully for the panel. We look forward to having you join us for Jazz Brunch on the first Sunday of the month.
Yes.
Fort Lauderdale Art Design Week. We plan to be back here doing more artist studio tours.
Absolutely.
I'll be off the crutches so we can hop up here. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me at EvansSnow13 on Instagram, at Choose954, at Art Fort Lauderdale, at CreativeZen, at Zero Empty Spaces, at Thousand Mermaids, at Fort Lauderdale Art Design Week. I'm an open book. Glad to help. And save the reefs, y'all. Have a good one.